Sophie and Buumi's Starbound Adventure. A magical journey begins. That night, while the moon hung like a silver lantern above her window, Sophie felt wide awake. She wriggled deeper into her cozy pajamas and reached up towards her favorite bookshelf, the one crammed with stories of faraway lands and hidden wonders. Just one more chapter, she whispered, even though she knew it was almost bedtime. In her right arm, she hugged her soft, familiar friend, Buumi. Half panda, half unicorn, all magic, even if you usually pretended not to be. On the windowsill, a sleepy orange cat snored gently, unaware that something extraordinary was about to happen. Sophie settled into her blanket fort, propping her pillow just right. The warm glow of her bedside lamp made the pages shimmer softly as she turned them. Buumi rested in her lap, his golden star stitching catching the light as though reflecting every word she read aloud. "Ready for a story, Buumi?" she asked. Buumi, as always, stayed quiet, but Sophie liked to imagine he was listening. Before long, Sophie had wriggled out from under the covers and sprawled on her front, the book opened wide before her. She leaned in closer to Buumi, lowering her voice to a whisper as if sharing a secret meant only for them. "You know, if stories were real," she mused thoughtfully, "we'd go on the best adventures, wouldn't we?" Buumi's stitched smile never changed, but somehow, in the quiet glow of the night, he looked a little more alive. Sophie blinked. Was she imagining it, or were the pages glowing? A soft sparkle drifted upward like a speck of dust caught in moonlight, but brighter, warmer, almost alive. "Buumi?" she whispered, shifting closer. The sparkles gathered, shimmering like tiny stars floating between the words. Then, with a gentle hum, like the sound of distant chimes, the light grew. A ribbon of color, soft as silk and as bright as a dream, unfurled from the center of the book. A rainbow rose in a twisting spiral, casting dancing reflections across Sophie's bedroom walls. She stared, wide-eyed. This isn't normal," she breathed. Buumi's horn glimmered faintly, as if answering. Sophie snatched up the book, half kneeling on her bed now, heart thumping with excitement. The rainbow spiraled around her, around Buumi, swelling faster, brighter, bolder. Wind lifted her hair, though her window was closed. The pages fluttered like wings. And somewhere deep in the rainbow glow, Sophie thought she could hear a voice calling her, inviting her. Suddenly the pull strengthened. The colors stretched, bending like a tunnel made of light, tugging gently but firmly at Sophie's arms and shoulders. She gasped, not with fear, but with astonishment. She reached back for Buumi, who sat frozen on the bed. "Buumi, come on," she cried, holding out her hand as the rainbow began to swallow her whole. Only her hand remained visible, glowing, trembling, waiting for her companion. Then Buumi moved, but not as a toy, but as something awake, something brave. He leapt forward, wings stretched wide as he grabbed Sophie's hand. Together, the rainbow flared bright, and in a single burst of light, they vanished, drawn into the heart of the story. The world blinked back into focus with a soft rush of wind. Sophie stumbled forward, landing on cool, velvety grass. Buumi appeared beside her, wings rustling as they settled. Behind them, a shimmering golden ring hovered in the air, the door they had fallen through, flickering like sunlight caught on ripples. Sophie looked around slowly. Towering trees glowed with soft blues and greens, their leaves sparkling as though dusted with starlight. Flowers in impossible colors swayed gently despite the still air. She caught her breath. "Where are we?" she whispered, eyes wide with wonder. She hadn't noticed yet, but she was no longer wearing her bedtime pajamas. Sophie turned slightly toward Buumi, taking in his new shape beneath the magical light. She gasped softly, but then something else caught her eye. Buumi, do I look different? She murmured, brushing her hands down her sides. Her pajamas were gone. In their place was a beautiful salmon pink dress that shimmered like rose petals touched by dawn. A delicate pink flower rested in her hair, as if it had been bloomed there just moments before. She touched it gently, bewildered. Then Sophie really looked at Buumi. Her little plushie, the one who normally fits snugly under her arm, now stood tall beside her, more than twice the size he had been. His fur looked soft and real, not stitched. His horn glimmered faintly. His wings flexed, feathers catching the light. And the golden star embroidered on his tummy glowed gently like a tiny heartbeat. Buumi, you're alive, Sophie whispered. Buumi blinked slowly as though waking from a very long slumber. Buumi stepped closer, gazing at her with warm, gentle eyes. For the first time he raised his paw, not stiff like a toy's, but soft, real warm. He extended it to her, mirroring how she had reached for him back in her bedroom, just before they were swept through the portal. Sophie's breath hitched. Their world had changed, but some things had stayed the same. Sophie couldn't help it. A bubbling giggle escaped her lips. The absurdity, the amazement, the joy! Buumi let out a soft, bashful laugh of his own, a sound Sophie had never heard before, gentle like a breeze through chimes. For a moment they laughed together, their voices echoing through the glowing forest. Even the flowers around them seemed to sway with happiness. Then, without speaking, Sophie slid her hand into Buumi's waiting paw. His grip was gentle and careful, as though he knew just how small her hands were inside his. A warm pulse glowed from the star on his tummy, spreading across their joined hands like a promise. Whatever this place was, they were in it together. A faint sound drifted through the trees, like bells in the distance, or wind singing through hollow stone. Sophie turned her head sharply, her eyes sparkling. Buumi, look, she exclaimed, pointing excitedly. Through the blue mist ahead, something bright flickered. A light? A creature? A clue? Buumi leaned forward, wings ruffling with curiosity. Whatever it was, Sophie wanted to explore. Hand in hand, they began walking. The forest stretched before them like a dream, full of twisting branches and glowing leaves. From behind, their tiny figures looked brave, Sophie in her flowing dress, Buumi protectively beside her. Pink, blue, and yellow flowers lined their path, creating a natural trail through the grass, as the soft mist curled around their ankles. They did not know where they were going yet, but every step felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Sophie's finger lifted, pointing towards something just out of view. Her eyes sparkled, but there was a flicker of doubt hiding beneath her excitement. Do you see that, Buumi? She asked softly, voice trembling just a little. Even as her lips curved in a smile, her heart beat faster. The forest ahead seemed alive with possibility, and a hint of something unknown. Buumi's ears twitched, his eyes following her gaze. He seemed to sense the same mix of wonder and worry. A fork appeared in the path before them. To the left, the trail darkened. The trees leaned closer together, shadows twisting into strange shapes. Mist hovered along the ground, and an eerie quiet filled the air. To the right, sunlight poured over a glade of dancing flowers, soft summer breezes rustling through the trees. It looked warm, safe, inviting. Buumi glanced up at Sophie, his wings fluttering nervously. He held her hands tightly as if asking her to choose, to guide them safely through the unknown. Sophie took a deep breath. Choices like these, even magical ones, could feel a little scary. Suddenly, a sound drifted from the left path, a whisper of movement or a soft sigh of the wind. He could feel the pull of the strange magic in the air. Then Buumi stiffened. With a sudden burst of energy, he bolted toward the shadowed trail. Sophie grabbed his paw, yanking gently, her tiny body leaning backward in effort. "Buumi, wait! Don't go!" she called, her voice trembling with concern. The pull between them was strong. The forest seemed to stretch and tug as though it wanted him to follow. Finally, with one more careful step and a gentle tug, Sophie brought Buumi to a halt. They stood side by side, breathing softly. Sophie's heart was still racing, but a calm returned as she looked up at him. "Shh, it's okay," she whispered. "We'll decide together." Buumi blinked, shaking off the tension, his horn catching a tiny glimmer of light from the sunbeams that filtered through the trees. Even in this magical forest, some things, like trust, were the same as at home. Sophie knelt in front of Buumi, looking up into his wide, gentle eyes. The path stretched behind them, one dark and foreboding, the other bathed in golden light. "Look, Buumi," she said softly, her hand brushing against his paw. "The sunny path, it feels happy, calm, safe. Let's try that way first, together." Buumi paused, tilting his head. He could feel the warmth in her voice, the courage in her touch. Slowly his wings flexed, and he nodded, ready to follow her lead. Together, hand in paw, they turned toward the summer glade, hearts open to whatever adventure awaited. Sophie and Buumi stepped onto the sunlit path, leaving the shadowed trail behind. Almost immediately, the gloom seemed to fade, as if the dark had never existed. The trees leaned back, their leaves sparkling in the gentle light. A warm breeze carried the scent of wild flowers, fresh and sweet. Every step felt lighter, freer, like the forest itself was welcoming them. Buumi's wings fluttered slightly, catching the sunbeams. Sophie glanced at him, smiling. "See, I told you," she whispered, her voice full of calm reassurance. And together, hand in paw, they continued deeper into the enchanted glade. A swirl of petals danced in the air, floating gently like tiny dancers. The flowers lining the path bloomed in richer colors, deep pinks, soft blues, and golden yellows, brighter than Sophie had ever seen. Buumi stood on tiptoe, twirling, his wings stretching with joy. He laughed softly, a sound of pure delight. Sophie's eyes widened as she spotted something ahead. "Look, Buumi! There!" she exclaimed, pointing excitedly. Even in this magical forest, there were always more wonders waiting around the next corner. They arrived at a glade that seemed almost too perfect to be real. At its center stood a multi-tiered fountain, each layer glimmering with crystals that caught the sunlight in sparkling rainbows. Glade petals floated gently through the air, drifting down onto the grass and the fountain's edges. The water trickled with a melodic sound, as though the fountain itself were singing softly. Sophie felt her heart lift. This place was safe, magical, and happy. She knelt at the edge, mesmerized by the glittering streams, and Buumi stood beside her, his eyes sparkling with wonder. But suddenly, the joyous spark in Buumi's eyes dimmed. He sank down onto his soft bum, his head drooping, his wings folded against his side, and the glow of his golden star dimmed slightly. Sophie knelt beside him, concern etching her little face. "Buumi, what is it?" she asked softly. The air felt still, even the petals seemed to pause, waiting for an answer. A closer look revealed the reason. Buumi's feet, usually hidden beneath his fluffy fur, were red and sore. Every step he had taken in this new world was new, heavy, and tiring. This was the first time he had truly walked, and the magic of the forest didn't make his little legs any less real. Sophie reached out, brushing a wing gently along his back. Oh, Buumi, I didn't think about that, she whispered. Let's rest for a moment. Even in a world of endless wonders, even magical creatures sometimes needed a little care. Sophie knelt closer to the crystal fountain, her small hands cupping together to catch the sparkling water. The water flowed like liquid starlight, cool and luminous, shimmering with every color of the glade around them. Petals swirled gently through the air, brushing against her cheeks and settling lightly on her dress. She held the water up for a moment, watching the tiny prisms dance within her palms. Buumi sat before her, his head lowered, his eyes drooping slightly. The golden star on his tummy, usually bright and cheerful, now pulsed softly, dimmed by fatigue. Sophie's eyes softened. This will help, Buumi, she whispered. Her voice was calm but firm, full of care and certainty. She was determined to make her friend feel better, no matter what. Sophie leaned forward, the water glinting like liquid diamonds in her hands. She carefully lifted it, tilting her palms slowly, just above Buumi's tired little feet. His fur was still fluffy but dampened slightly by the walk, and the tips of his toes were red and sore. Buumi looked up at Sophie, eyes wide and trusting, and a faint shiver ran down his back. You're going to feel better soon, Sophie murmured. Even the petals seemed to hover closer, swirling protectively around them as if the forest itself approved of her care. Gently, Sophie poured the sparkling water over Buumi's sore feet. A soft hiss of relief escaped him, and a single tear glimmered in his eye, sparkling like the crystal water itself. She rubbed and dabbed the water over his tiny paws, massaging it in like a cooling balm. The petals from the glade drifted down around them, brushing against her hands and his fur, as if the forest were holding its breath in awe of this small, tender moment. Buumi's whiskers twitched. His head lowered slightly, then pressed softly against Sophie's palm. The trust between them, quiet and profound, filled the glade like sunlight through the leaves. For a moment, nothing else existed, just Sophie, Buumi, the fountain, and the magic of care. Slowly the change came. Buumi lifted his head, eyes sparkling once more. His arms rose in the air, wings flexing gently, and the golden star embroidered on his tummy glowed brightly again, as though celebrating his renewed energy. Joy lit his face, wide and unrestrained, the kind of happiness that made the glade itself seem to shimmer. Sophie remained kneeling beside him, her posture upright now, her smile warm and steady. She looked at him with pride and relief, her own heart swelling at seeing her happy friend happy again. The petals swirled around them in a gentle dance, the fountain trickled a soft, melodic song, and the forest seemed to glow a little brighter, honoring this moment of healing and friendship. Hand in paw, Sophie and Buumi left the crystal fountain behind, their footsteps soft on the grassy glade. From behind, they looked like a perfect pair, a little girl in her salmon-pink dress, her hair kissed by the pink flower, and her magical friend, cuddly and warm, wings brushing lightly against the air. The petals swirled around them, catching the sunlight and drifting gently in their wake, like a living trail marking their journey. Each step felt lighter now that Buumi's feet had recovered, and each heartbeat carried a shared joy, the quiet, unspoken bond between friends who had conquered uncertainty together. The forest stretched ahead, alive with color, light, and the subtle hum of magic, inviting them onward. Suddenly, a soft, shimmering blue light appeared just ahead of them. A portal hovered in the air, calm and beckoning, like a window to another world, a bridge between this magical glade and the world they had left behind. It pulsed gently, a quiet rhythm that seemed to call to them, tugging at their hearts with an irresistible pull. Sophie blinked, and Buumi's ears twitched in anticipation. They felt its gentle power, not frightening, but insistent, reminding them that even the grandest adventures must eventually pause, if only for a time. tired now. Maybe it's time to go home." Buumi tilted his head, eyes warm and understanding. He gave a gentle nod, wings folding neatly against his back. "Yes," he seemed to say, without words. "We can come back another time." A breeze rustled the leaves, and the glade seemed to exhale with them, acknowledging their choice. Together they took a deep breath, hearts full of day's magic, laughter, and the gentle knowledge that home awaited. The pull of the portal grew stronger, lifting them effortlessly into the air. Sophie and Buumi floated, hand in paw, laughing softly as their feet left the grassy path below. The petals swirled around them in a sparkling whirl, carried by the gentle wind that seemed to follow their ascent. Buumi's golden star glowed brighter than ever, casting tiny rays of light that danced across Sophie's dress. They rose higher, faces radiant with joy, excitement, and the serene happiness of a journey shared. The portal shimmered before them, welcoming, and for a single perfect moment, it felt like the world itself was celebrating their friendship, bravery, and the magic they had discovered together. The blue light of the portal slowly shifted, deepening into a warm golden yellow. Where moments ago Sophie and Buumi had floated, nothing remained, only the softly glowing ring hovering in midair, radiant and serene. The forest seemed to sigh, the petals settling gently back to the ground. It was as if the portal itself had closed the circle of their adventure, leaving behind only the lingering magic of their presence. In the gentle golden light, the glade held a quiet promise. Adventures may pause, but they are never truly gone. Back in Sophie's bedroom, the book lay open on the bed. Sunlight streamed through the window, spilling golden beams across the pages, as if the story itself were alive. The edges of the pages shimmered faintly, catching the light and twinkling like the petals from the magical forest. Somewhere deep inside, Sophie and Buumi were still journeying, returning through the quiet hum of imagination, leaving traces of wonder for anyone who would open the book again. And there they were, back in the real world. Sophie curled under her blankets, Buumi tucked safely by her side. Their eyes were closed, breaths even and soft, the kind of sleep that follows a day full of extraordinary discoveries. The orange cat remained on the windowsill, peaceful and undisturbed, sleeping soundly as if no time had passed at all. The room was calm, still bathed in moonlight, leaving the possibility that it had all been a dream, or perhaps, just perhaps, a very real adventure only they had experienced. The scene pulled back, the room and its sleeping pair now appearing as a full page in the book itself. On the left-hand page, in gentle script, the words read, Chapter 1, The Magical Journey Finished. The right-hand page captured Sophie and Buumi in their serene slumber, surrounded by the glow of morning sunlight and the lingering sparkle of adventure. The book was far from finished. More pages, more stories, more wonders waited, only a turn of the page away. And with that, the first chapter gently closed, leaving hearts full, imaginations alive, and the promise that the next magical journey was just around the corner.